The campus bonds run with again. The warmer sky and the windy, while home remains in winter's rain. Distant wall, you mark the day till spring returns with the morning rains. And when it does, like doves will soar.
Okay, and just like that, the music stops and I start. Hi, my name is Lilia Kirilenka, and I'm really grateful to everyone who is going to join me live today. I do know how disturbing it can be because you need to do something with your things that you were supposed to be doing, like let's say try to delegate your kids, or for some of you, kids are already fast asleep and you are falling to sleep as well. So I know how it is, because unfortunately we can't make the time suit everyone. So I do understand the effort. And to those of you who is watching me recorded, well, thank you for spending the time. Now, I'm going to tell you about SBR and about the approach that works and that helps you to pass with the minimum effort that you can apply. I can't tell you that you can just pass without doing nothing. No, because, well, this is a hard exam. But as an adult, as a person who had to work overtime, I worked for a big four company, so you do know how busy the schedule could be. As a person who now has a kid, so I know how hard it is to integrate your studies in your life, which is already busy. But I know that I'm the person who can do that, because I personally have had groups with 100% pass rate. So each and every person would pass. How fantastic is that? So this means that the approach actually works. Not every group, no, but those groups that didn't have 100% pass rate, they still had a pass rate which is well above the average, and that is what is needed if you want to call yourself a platinum learning provider, a gold learning provider, and I've worked with such learning providers for the past 10 years. I myself would take 3 exams per session, 2 exams at least. So the last session that I took SBR, AFM, and APM. They had slightly different names, but still the idea was the same. And I did that despite having quite a harsh season at work, despite having a horse, my wonderful horse, that I had to attend to. And I also did that for financial management, audit and assurance, and diploma in FRS exam. So I know how to multitask. I have been one-on-one tutor for many years, so this means that I know where people make mistakes, how to fix different troubles. And I think that because of my unique experience, like working individually, I know much more than conventional tutors that teach to groups have, because, well, when you teach a group, you basically get a chance to review like maybe 5, 7 assignments, and that is it. And I would do that regularly for, let's say, 15 meetings or so. I myself worked as a CFO, so I know how ACCA is applied, not only in respect of SBR, but also financial management, advanced performance management. So I can bring whatever you are studying to life, and I can provide real life examples. And if you're in my group, so I can kind of like motivate you by highlighting the importance of whatever we are doing. And I hate the advice, study as much as you can, practice as much as you can. Because you are an adult, you have so much on your plate. You have your job that is quite demanding, right? Maybe you have kids, maybe you have some hobbies. And if you would have some free time, I trust you could find something that you could occupy it with, right? So it's not like we were sitting there waiting for ACCA to come and save us from doing nothing. No, we have to take ACCA studies and just squeeze it into our life that has already been packed pretty well. So I hate practice as much as you can. No, your time is precious. And that's why it is important to study smart and not hard. And that is what we are going to talk about today. So, yes, you came to SBR Exam Tips to Pass. And I, Lily Kirilenka, FCCA, well, I have passed ACCA exams years ago. I am the dinosaur that would do that in writing for 3 hours and 15 minutes straight. I would do that when we had 14 exams, yes, so more exams that you compared to what you have now. Yes, so what are the main study approaches the student have? Well, when you read the internet, you will find out that some of the students decide that they are going to learn the theory first and then they are going to practice later. Or they are going to say, no, I'm going to read a bit and then I'm going to practice. And some people just start with the exam kit and then they just say, okay, I am going to take the exam kit and I am going to just read, like try to attempt the question, read the answer, and then I would just open the book and try to see where I am wrong. So how about you? I have launched a poll. Tell me which option is yours. So are you the one who wants to learn the theory first, learn the theory and practice as you learn, or start with the practice and then open the book only if you find that something doesn't work? Okay. Well, there could be different strategies for different exams. That's for sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to share the results with you. Oh, yes. Thank you for everyone participating. Okay, here we go. Yep, here we go. It's more like the majority of you wants to learn the theory first and then to practice, and slightly fewer people would practice as they learn. And yes, very, very good for this very exam that you don't start with the exam kit. Not for this very exam because it has so much of technical knowledge. But what would be the best approach? For SBR, the best approach is to know where you are headed. Look, many people come here with the wrong assumption that this exam is about consolidation. It's not. We do have question number 1, which has some questions, which has some part where we have to make adjustments, but it's not like we actually have to consolidate the two entities, something that you would do in your financial reporting or diploma in a FRS exam. No. Instead, what we need to talk about, we need to talk about hard aspect of the standard. So basically, your questions are going to sound like, look, nobody knows how to account for that, but maybe you, a person who has just read SBR book, knows how to. And then you need to talk about it and you need to explain. You can't just say, you can't just bring entries because you won't get any marks for just saying, let's say, debit, right of use asset, credit, lease liability. No, that is not going to get you a mark. You need to explain why this happens. So let me give you an easy example, the one that you probably are aware of. So when we're talking about IAS 16, property, plant, equipment, when we would explain why something has been capitalized or should be capitalized or should not be capitalized, we would need to justify. We can't say that training cost, training to use the equipment, can't be capitalized. No, we need to talk about the standard. So you would need to say, Training cost of 1,000 are not the cost that was needed to bring the asset to the, and then we're going to talk about the slide, condition and location. That's why they should be expensed. And that is how your justification is going to look like. And we will have to justify. We will have to read the standards, not from the perspective of recognizing them, as we would do in the financial reporting exam, since we have multiple choice questions in there. No, we need to learn how to justify. So we need to be able to identify the logical points. So what I would suggest that you start with is to watch SBR Made Easy podcast, and you will see that there are lots of standards covered and many more videos to follow. And let's say you are talking about IS 16 property plant equipment. Go through the podcast, spend this 5-10 minutes, listen to it to learn how the standard is tested. So for example, that you need to pay attention that there could be certification costs, or that you need to pay attention to the fact that in case of some extreme weather conditions, you will have shorter useful life and a different residual value, and as such you will have to revisit your depreciation rates, and you would also need to impair the asset, so that you would know what to look for when you are watching the videos or reading the book about this very standard. And that would be applicable to everyone, regardless of what approach you are taking, whether you are a self-study or you take course or you have individual classes. This SBR Made Easy podcast is something that is going to save time. Why is that? Well, that is about the focus that we have as an adult. Like let's talk about your room. When you are going to look around and see how many items you have in your room, most likely there are going to be quite a lot. So I have a glass of water, I have my phone line, I have my watch that is being charged, I have, let's say, lamp, I have, wardrobe and whatever. But your mind doesn't store the information about everything. Because if you would go to each and every room and would try to remember what is there, and so on, well, you would get overloaded. That is not needed. But if you come to the room with this certain expectation, so for example, you're thirsty and you're looking for your water, or for example, you're looking for your phone and so on, then it's easier for you to notice where the object is. The same idea relates to ACCA. That is exactly why they tell you that you need to start by reading the requirement first. So what is that you need to do? And only then the scenario. That is why you need to start with SBR Made Easy podcast to learn what to look for, and then go to the theory. That is the most important part. Start with the SBR Made Easy podcast. And do short practice after each topic. So the approach number 2, when you try to read everything and learn the theory and then practice it, is useless. Why? Because you're an adult. So if you are over something like 22 years old, your brain doesn't, like scientifically, like physically, your brain doesn't work this way. As humans, we have different stages of brain development because we have different functions that need to be developed. For example, when we're talking about kids that are under 3 years old, they are going to absorb everything. They don't know where they have been born. So they don't know whether they have been born to a Chinese family and they need to try and get the Chinese sounds, or whether they were born in, let's say, British family and they need to pick up the English language. They don't know whether they are going to, let's say, live in the village and take care after the pets, after the farm animals, or whether they have been born in the city and they will have to go and play musical instruments, well, for example, right? So like naturally, biology designed kids in such a way that the first 3 years is that the time when they pick up everything that they learn. Then they are going to have a different attention, so they will be able to learn really quickly whatever they're paying attention to, and that is going to coincide with their sensitive periods. So for example, there is a window of opportunity where it's very easy for a person to learn how to read. And the funny thing is that long time ago, only adults would read, right? And they would learn reading only at a certain age. And now we know that the sensitive period is much earlier, so it's 5 to 6 years, and so on. And the same applies to us, to adults. So now we can't just memorize the stuff because we have to. I mean, it was school times when they tell you you need to learn the poem and you learn it, like you read it a couple of times and that's okay. Now it doesn't work this way, no. So you have to make the knowledge relatable to your experience. So this means that we have to do short practice after each topic. What does it mean for you? If you are going to go through self-study route, this means that let's say you open a study hub and you read the standard. Okay, you see the examples, these are going to be vital, and then try to use Control F, try to source the past papers that are going to test this very topic. If you work with a learning provider, if you are at the stage where you need to choose a learning provider, try to inquire about their approach to studies. Because what happens quite often, and this is just the business, is that they try to upsell you. So they try to sell you some basic package and then expand it, and they try to sell you the theory without the practice, and they know that you're going to come back for practice, because without it, the theory is just a fairy tale. Try to inquire whether they have practice within their package, within the theory package. So for example, I personally don't think that we actually can study theory without the practice that goes right after. So like if when we're talking about my course, then you will see that enhanced tuition always has the example, always has a short past paper example, so that the knowledge will get relatable, so that your adult brain will remember the information better. Okay? But it's equally important for us to revisit the information. So look, when we're talking about ACCA, of course, there haven't been any major scientific studies held, well, because it's something that is narrow, right? But when we're talking about other subjects, other areas, especially when we're talking about the foreign language, and in here we basically need to write essays, so it's kind of like foreign language study as well. What is important is that, first of all, you have 2 to 3 touches of this very syllabus, of this very exam per week. So if you are going to schedule your studies for, let's say, Saturday only, that's going to be a disaster, because you are going to just forget whatever you have covered by the time the next Saturday comes. What you need to do instead, you need to make sure that it's 2 to 3 touches. How to structure that? Okay, you are a busy person, so you can't study after work because your head feels like exploding. No problem. You need to do at least something. So for example, let's imagine that you study on Saturday. Okay, great. And it will be Saturday. It's going to be, let's say, 6 hours of your very condensed training. Great. So what should you do then? This means that you should go, let's say, Monday. Okay, let's listen to SBR Made Easy podcast to refresh whatever you have covered, and to also listen to the videos, listen to the podcast about the standards that you are going to cover in the upcoming Saturday. Okay, so this was Monday. Let's talk about Wednesday or Thursday. Well, that day, try to attempt some quizzes because you need to refresh your knowledge. We are going to talk about quizzes later, but if anything, I am posting quizzes on a weekly basis with the video explanation that follows the next day, and that allows you to be in the loop. So, you need to have a short practice when you are covering the topic, and if you are able to separate your studies and not make this one exhausting day of studies, but to study a little bit on Monday, on Wednesday, and so on, this would be fantastic, because it's like with the gym. If you just go there once a month and exhaust yourself for a day, it's no good for you. You need to do that regularly. So it's better to go there for, let's say, 45 minutes or an hour, let's say 2 times a week, rather than just to go there once a month for, let's say, 10 hours. But still, it is important for you to practice at least one long question weekly. And the way that it works is that we need to repeat the information that we have covered in something like 5 to 9 days. So there are different studies. So 7 days is usually this most frequently met time. And this means that if you started studying about, let's say, property, plant, equipment, investment property, intangible assets, and so on, find a question that you can practice, let's say, next Saturday when you're going to study, so that you would refresh the knowledge. Don't wait until you cover everything. Don't wait until you're through with the theory, because otherwise you will forget whatever you have learned, and whatever you have done, whatever you have spent your precious time on, is going to be wasted. So long questions would be important. By saying long questions, I mean like take this full past paper question, not just a bit that would relate to this topic that you're covering. So, well, they say that you need to have allocate a month and a half before the exam. I do know that for many of you, it's quite unrealistic. But try to make sure that there are 2 weeks to practice before the exam. For several reasons. The most important is that you are an adult, so you have responsibilities. So this means that suddenly it can be that you have a work deadline, or it can be that you have something else. Like I had a client, and unfortunately his parents got mugged, and well, he had to deal with that. So he had to help them to change the passwords, change the locks, and so on and so on. So it took the precious time and the mental capacity and so on. So he was supposed to take a few days off studies because his mind was elsewhere. And things happen. Okay, I don't wish you to be robbed. I don't wish you to be mugged. But still, we have to understand that things happen. And as adults, it's our job to fix them, unfortunately. Also, people get sick sometimes. And again, I have worked for so many years, and I do know that it doesn't happen to everyone. But when it happens, it is so annoying, and it is in the most inconvenient time. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Make sure that you never schedule learning anything new 2 weeks before the exam. 2 weeks needs to be allocated only for practice and for emergency. And even if you think that you will be able to take some study leaves off work, doesn't necessarily happen to everyone. Now, let's talk about why SBR is a hard exam and what should we do about it. First of all, I would like you to understand that it's indeed one of the most voluminous exams. It's 40 standards, more than 40 standards papers. I'm saying standards papers because they are also something that is not exactly an IFRS standard, but we need to study it. So, for example, we need to study about the management commentary. We would need to study about MDPs. We would need to study about APMs, some of the measures. We would need to study something about sustainability reporting. So it's kind of like on top of whatever you have covered with your FR exam. And because there are so many standards, you can see that it takes so much time to practice and to study. So just to give you the understanding, so this is the screenshot of my folder. It has been done a while ago. Yes, but you can see that the theory plus short practice, only that part without the practice, it takes 146 files. Well, of course, the files are quite short because I do understand that you don't have time and mental capacity to watch 2-hour long videos. No, they are like 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, 30 most. Because, well, when we're talking about hedging comparison, then of course we need more time on that, but just see how much you have to cover. And it's important for you to understand it because you need to be able to allocate your time properly. That's why when people come to me, we talk about their plans, we talk about the availability, and I give them the schedule. Why? Because you can't just plan based on these standards, because some of the standards are rather short. So IS2, it's just like one slide. Let's say IFRS 8 is rather short. We have quite a lot of examples. It's tested pretty frequently, but still it's rather short. But when we're talking about, let's say, IFRS 16 leases, then in here we basically have 3 different topics, major topics like lessees, lessee's point of view, sale and lease back, right? When we're talking about the financial instruments, that's even more. So this means that you make sure that when you are going to prepare to think about your schedule, you understand the complexity of the standards. And if you have a tutor, please ask them to help you with the plan. Now, so what do we do with the fact there is so much to learn? You need to visualize. There are different ways how you can do that. You can draw mind maps. So like we start with the topic and we have arrows and so on, and we draw a mind map so that we could organize everything on A4 piece of paper. I am personally not such a person. I prefer when it's in a tabular format. For me, it's easier to compare, especially when we talk about, let's say, financial instruments and accounting for financial assets that are investments in debt securities at amortized cost, fair value through P&L or fair value through OCI. Well, it's easier for me to have a certain structure. But you can use whatever you like. So, for example, well, this is just an extract. Okay, well, put, let's say, it as a tabular form. Great. Record entries and try to highlight whatever is important, whatever is different. You can make a summary like that. You can use icons. You can use drawings. You can make sure that you use different colors. So, for example, if we're talking about the related parties, is going to be on this white background. When we're talking about something that is someone that is not related, use different colors so that you will subconsciously try to memorize that. That's why I've spent so much time recording these videos, and not even recording the videos, but preparing the presentation so that they would help you, they would assist you visually. And you have been given some previews, and sometimes I share some of the videos. So use them because and make sure that you don't just listen to it, but you look at it, because your visual aspect is also super important. Now, we are going to visualize our standard papers, but please don't ask for summaries. I see it so often. I see people who just passed the exam yesterday saying that they are going to share their PDFs of pictures of their written notes. That is the worst thing to do. Look, somebody else's summaries won't help. First of all, you don't know that person's expertise. You don't know whether they have rewritten everything correctly. because, well, they didn't have this experience, this capacity to double check whatever they are doing right or wrong. So, for example, with my example in here, you will, where is it here? You will see that I stress that for fair value through OCI instruments, when we're talking about the interest income calculation, we don't calculate it based on the opening balance. No, instead we copy it from the amortized cost calculation, which is something that people miss all the time. And a person that has just passed the exam, they may not even know it and they may misguide you. But also the problem is that when we're talking about summaries, that is not how your brain understands the information. And that also relates a little bit to the use of ChatGPT. Look, if you were to remember a list of words, like let's say 10 words, you would need to organize them into some picture, right? Into some story. You can't just remember, let's say, a glass, phone, microphone, computer, tree, car, rain. You need to think about this story. You need to visualize it. Okay, so I'm sitting here, I have a glass here, glass of water that I sip occasionally. I have phone that is being charged. I have, let's say, cars that are driving there and so on. That can help you. If you need to go grocery store shopping, right? And you have this list that is not really organized, that you need to buy, let's say, carrots, chicken, fish, parsley, and so on. You can't memorize it. What you can do, you can try to kind of like visualize where you are going to take these items from, like organize them based on the type of the groceries, like, okay, these are veggies and so on. So summaries won't help you because they don't convey a story. And you are going to fool yourself into thinking that you know what is there, but you won't. Has it ever happened to you that you watched, let's say, a movie and it was great, or like TV series, and then they ask you what it is about, and it's hard for you to recall everything. It's hard for you to recall names and so on. I think that sometimes it has happened. Well, it's even worse in here for summaries. So please don't. Try watching the videos or reading, let's say, Study Hub or a book that you're going to buy, and making those summaries yourself. As for my summaries, well, because they come with the video, because I talk about them in the video and you can print them out, this is a perfect story. So you don't have to do anything. You don't need to spend your time drawing it, redrawing, and so on. You can just use whatever is there. That's why they have been made so memorable. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that there is a huge area for misinterpretation. That's why SBR is so hard. So you think that you've learned whatever is needed for the exam very well, but then you realize, or don't even realize, that data investments at data carried at fair value through OCI have very peculiar interest income calculation. Or, for example, we have different way of accounting for convertibles purchased rather than convertible debt and equity when we sold the bonds, the convertible bonds. Or, for example, when we're talking about inventory impairment is guarded by IS2 and not IS36. So we don't use fair value less cost to sell. We use the net realizable value, which is a slightly different story. So what do we do with those areas of misinterpretation, and how can you make sure that you spend less time fixing that? Try to attempt quizzes. Look, so I post quizzes on my LinkedIn page each and every week. As I told you, this is followed by the video explanation. Video explanation is utmost important to you because, well, that kind of like teaches you SBR for free over there, like stressing whatever is the most important. And it is, I create quizzes using that, using the areas where people make mistakes. I never ask you what is the standard that tests property, plant, equipment. That is irrelevant. That won't bring you any marks in SBR exam. I'm the person who comes from the experience of having no time and still passing the exams. And that is what I want to give to you. So they are going to be created in order to confuse you, in order to give you time for doubt, but also to grow you. And if you have my course, then you will see quizzes there in my course, and you will see that there are quite a few of them. And I will show the picture later. The question is, will ChatGPT work? Well, look, I do use ChatGPT for my work. I used it a lot to create those pictures for presentations so that I could visualize and make everything moving and so on. I use ChatGPT sometimes to organize something. Well, because I really like to learn. Maybe it's going to give me some ideas how to present the information, hard topics better. And of course, I ask ChatGPT to give me ideas for quizzes. And despite the fact that I have been in this business for over a decade, so I have books starting from year 2015 up until year 2025, and I have them in the like this copy paste format. So because like as a registered tutor and so on, so I have all the books in a PDF that can be recognized, and I can upload it. I can feed it to ChatGPT together with the examiner's report, together with the past papers, and so on. I have very well trained ChatGPT for SBR, which I assume you don't. You have just general knowledge ChatGPT, and still, when I ask it, like, it don't really matter how I write the prompt, like stressing that this is where the areas from the examiner's report and so on. Well, most likely it's rubbish. I do get some ideas, so usually I ask it, okay, give me like 5 ideas to test. I mean, like the prompt is longer, but still 5 ideas to test IFRS 5. And it's good when I get just one idea, which I have to rework later. So what is going to happen if you are going to use ChatGPT for your quizzes is that you are going to spend time interrogating it. You are going to get the wrong perception that you have great knowledge, great understanding, but it's going to happen because they are going to test something that is not tested in SBR. And you will not learn something that you were supposed to learn. So better not, especially if you are with my course. Well, you do have everything in there. So like in here, let's say this is a screenshot from sale and leaseback. Yes, talking about the planning, I always write there how many videos, how many minutes, so that you could plan better. Wow, that's a lot for financial instruments, as you can see. And look, I have quizzes for each and every topic. Like, let's say when we're talking about IFRS 16, it's about lessees, the lessees account, and the sale and leaseback, and so on. And you will see that there are not only the quizzes that are there, there is also explanation why the answer is correct or is incorrect. Because I don't care about you guessing the answer. I care about you learning from it and having this confidence why it was right or why it was wrong. And that is how it works. Now, another problem that you are going to experience is unexpected questions. So the question that I get as a tutor all the time is, what are the standards that are tested? And of course, I tell people, okay, look, you have to master IS-32. So when we have to explain why this is debt or equity, well, that is because there are going to be instruments that are not really conventional, like let's say cryptocurrencies and initial coin offering and so on. And in there, you will have to discuss and justify. You need to know very well how to apply IS-38. It looks like a fairy tale. Trust me, it's not. And it's going to be tested because each and every company has lots of intangible assets, even if it's a manufacturing company. So ACCA needs you to understand how to use it, how to apply it, and so on. But still, there are going to be unexpected questions. Yes. So, hi Lilia, what questions do you expect for December sitting? Here is the question now that I would expect, yes, and then we get something like that. So, look, using Exhibit 1, critically assess the extent to which models company disclosure of judgments and estimates is useful for investors. Doesn't really matter which book you are using, doesn't really matter which course you are using. There will never be a topic why disclosures of judgment and estimates are useful. That is something that just comes. This is an unexpected question. Or how Maple companies should establish an accounting policy where an issue is not addressed. Well, frankly speaking, we had it in ISI, the basis for preparation. It has the new name now. Before it was changes in accounting estimates, policies and errors. But still, like, this is not something that you would expect. So how do we attempt the unexpected questions? We first start by trying to pick low-hanging fruit. So we try to spot something. Okay, like, is there what year is in question? Okay, if it's next year, so maybe we can talk about adjusting non-adjusting event. If it is something that relates to previous period, then this is the invitation to use IS8. We learn to spot triggers, and that is of utmost importance. So if you're going to pay attention how I treat questions, I never just stay there and just say, okay, here is the model answer, blah, 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 well, let's retype it. That is useless. You need to know how to challenge the scenario and what means what. So, like, I highlight whatever is important and I explain to you. Well, for example, the company uses its own engineers. Pay attention, there is an adjective. Every time we have adjectives that are extreme, like own, never, ever, market, and so on, we have to talk about them. And this is what it means in here. Now, so for unexpected questions, we will need to practice unexpected questions. And that is the skill that you are going to develop. And I'm going to send you the presentation. But before I do, I would really love you to just understand that they're going to happen in each and every exam. So you have to develop the skill. You can't prepare for them. You can develop a skill only. And try looking at March, June 24 estimates note, September, December 18 SCITSA, intangible assets and the conceptual framework, not artificial intelligence, intangible assets, that's a typo. Oh, sorry, it's, I tried to say that it's part A and yes, sorry, it's not artificial intelligence, it's AI. Question A, sub-question I, so the first in the Roman letters, like this one. And make sure that you attempt them to practice this very skill. And what would be another thing that would be important and that would be hard in this very exam, on top of that, when you are going to go through the model answer to see whether you were able or not able to score marks with these unusual questions or normal questions. Unfortunately, the marking scheme is going to be super rich, saying 1 mark per relevant point. The question is, what the hell does it mean? Oh, who knows, right? So with the 1 mark per relevant point, you need to watch example videos to see how the scenario is used to generate the answer. So basically, what is the process of getting those relevant points? And when you learn how it is done, it's going to be easier for you to spot mistakes. It's like, you know, like with the foreign language, when you have studied like some words and some sentences and so on, you kind of know how it sounds like, and it's easier for you to spot when something is wrong. When you have practiced cooking, it's easier for you to spot when something is wrong. It is also important for you to learn about the exam technique. So in my LinkedIn, you have seen the post on exam technique where I teach you why you can't use and, why you can't use or in your answer, why these words are going to steal your marks and will make you fail. In my practice videos that are available also, you will see me explaining and showing how to do it differently. Time management. So with the time management, the problem is that we need to pay attention to the number of questions in the scenario. So not only in the requirement, sometimes the scenario can contradict a little bit to the requirement that we have, and we need to generate the answer from the scenario. So not from the theory, not from your understanding of what is right or wrong, but we need to take the copy paste from the scenario, and that is the skill that you need to practice. And if you are going to practice, and again, going back to the topic that we are discussing, we want to reduce the time spent on study. This means that we understand that because you are an adult, you won't be able to cover the full syllabus, or at least practice the full syllabus. So this means that in certain areas you are going to get to be unprepared. And when you go to the exam, you need to deal with that. So you need to be able to pass without knowing everything. And in order to do that, you need to learn how to use the scenario to generate the answer. So you need to learn about the triggers. And when you have any course or when you watch videos, make sure that you pay attention to how whatever is there is received from whatever is here. The model answer is not such a great example in this case, because with the model answer, sometimes they give you much more just to show you the expandable theory. And you will see that it's impossible to retype it within the time allowed. So try to rely on the video answers. What do you do if you don't know what to write? Well, first of all, break down question in parts. So we look at the question, we see that it's for 10 marks, and we're like, oh my God, I have no idea what the question is about, and I see that it's for 10 marks. It looks like a disaster. But then when you are going to pay attention to the marks, if you are going to pay attention to the parts of the question that are separated using and or comma, you will see that it's not one 10-mark question, but rather, let's say, 3 questions, one for 2 marks, one for 4 marks, one for 4 marks. That is going to make your life easier. And you need to go step by step. You don't need to answer the question. You need to attempt the question. So it doesn't really matter what the right answer is. It doesn't really matter if you know or don't know whether it has to be financial liability or equity. What matters is that you look at the scenario, you were able to pinpoint this part of the scenario that is important and say, comment what it means from the perspective of the standard. For example, we have a question about a company that has initial coin offering. There is no standard for initial coin offering. There is no standard for cryptocurrency. And we see that coins allow the users, the holders of these coins, to get payment each and every year. So you are going to say, oh, so there is an obligation to deliver cash. So it looks like a financial liability according to IS 32. So see, you need to spot the triggers and go step by step. And if we need to discuss, so for example, a typical question tested very often is whether something is functional or which currency is functional. So whether it's going to be dinars or gromids or dollars. I have no idea which one is. Or for example, in questions, who is the acquirer, company A or company B? I have no idea who is the acquirer. And it's okay. I may still get the top mark, the highest mark allowed for this very question. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say on one hand, on the other hand. So I'm going to say, oh, on one hand, the company pays salaries in dollars. Salary is one of the major expenses. So dollar is the currency that impacts the expenses. Okay. On the other hand, the company invoices clients in pounds. So pounds is the currency that impacts the sales prices. So it looks like it's the pound that is the functional currency, and so on. On one hand, they are the acquirer. On the other hand, they are the acquirer. So final answer doesn't really matter. And if you're going to look at the model answer, you will see that quite often the number of marks that you can get with your answer is higher than whatever they can allocate to you. So there could be, let's say, 15 valid ideas, but they will be able to, they are capped with 10 marks because that is how much they can put in the window of the system. Otherwise, it won't just go next. So for example, in here, okay, sorry, something, yes, okay. So the directors of Fastner argue that the company has to recognize internally generated brand. We need to talk about whether the directors' comments, the extent to which each of the directors' comments are valid. However, this is strictly prohibited under IS 38. The directors complain that this contradicts conceptual framework, which praises the importance of including all relevant information in the financial statements. So I would need to discuss the director's comments. Okay. They say that the recognition strictly prohibits IS 38. Well, first thing that I can do, I can comment whether it's indeed the case. Yes, IS 38 strictly prohibits doing that. They complain that this contradicts the conceptual framework, which praises the importance of including all relevant information. So I would need to talk about the relevant information. I need to talk about the relevant information. What else do I know? It is 6 marks. Oh, I remember that there have been 2 fundamental qualitative characteristics, so relevance and faithful representation. So probably I would need to talk about it as well. How do I get 4 marks? Well, I have 2 already, well, maybe 3. How do I get extra marks? Well, probably, because it's supposed to be an asset or a candidate to be an asset, I need to talk about the definition of an asset. So I need to remember the logical points that I had, and it's great that everything was visualized, including the logical points, including the explanation when these logical points don't work. So I remember that this is an economic, economic benefits or economic resource that is going to bring economic benefits. I remember that it has to be controlled by the entity. And I remember that it has to be as a result of past events. And I have created this short list of ideas, and now I would need to explain using each and every part. Okay, so internally generated brand, does it indeed come from past events? Oh yes, because the marketing effort has been spent in the past in order to create the brand. Is it controlled by the entity? Yes, by means of patents, for example, the entity can prevent others from using it, from you getting benefits. Is it an economic resource? Yes, it is, because they Batty's the brand, they Batty's ability to sell to more clients. It's relevant? Oh yes, it is relevant. I already utilized the idea of selling to more clients. Well, I can talk about higher prices. Well, because it communicates to the users of the report, gives the idea of how high prices can be charged. Okay, can they be faithfully presented? No, because I can't separate the marketing effort that is needed to promote short-term sales from long-term brand creation. And that is how I do that. And maybe I wouldn't know anything about faithful representation, but I would be able intellectually to challenge whether it's the relevant information. So this 1 mark about the relevant information is something that I would be able to get for sure. And as for the definitions, I would most likely be able to get them. Oh, I've deleted them accidentally, yes, and I can't put them back. Okay, we'll have to deal with that. So as for the definition of the asset, Also, as well, I can think about it because I was kind of like made aware that this is something that will be tested both in SBR Made Easy podcast and in the video lectures. So that is how it works. And that is how we attempt questions that are non-standard. So that is what we do. Now, the next thing that makes the exam real hard is not understanding the context. So what does it mean? It means that you are doing something that is not about this very exam. Our exam is about strategic business reporting. So understanding how whatever the management does is going to impact the perception of our financial statements. The exam is not about debits and credits. So stop writing debits that, credit that. That is 0 marks. There are tricks that are commonly tested which you need to be aware of. That's why you have to watch the SBR Made Easy podcast. Another problem is that people fail to formulate the answer the way that brings marks. Yes, that was about the podcast. Okay, so as for formulating the answer that brings marks, you need to understand that there are tricks. For example, you can't just say that the right of use asset should be recognized in the amount of 5 million. You need to explain how the number is taken. So you would need to say that the right of use asset will be recognized in the amount equal to the lease liability recognized. If we have some prepayments, we would say and prepayments that have been made. So the building will be recognized at, and we can't just say 10 million, we need to put the description of what 10 million is at a cost of 10 million. Or investment in bonds are going to be recognized at the fair value of 20 million. And that is how we get marks. So these tiny words, there's just the words cost and the word fair value, is something that is going to bring you mark. Lose it, no mark. Every calculation needs explanation of its components. So, for example, when we're talking about the interest cost, you can't just say interest cost and then you say 10 times 5%. No, that is no marks. There is a certain rule of how we need to formulate the answer. So we would need to say that like the effective rate should be taken, the opening balance should be taken, and so on. And every accounting matter should be broken down in 4 steps. So what happens at the recognition? So what is the date and amount? Explain what the statement of financial position line is going to be, or like what is the type of accounting. So for example, why it's going to be accounted for at amortized cost. Talk about what happens for the period and whether it goes to P&L or OCI, and talk about what is the balance on the period end. Now, when explaining the accounting treatment, it's important for us to copy-paste a part of the scenario and then say how it's related to whatever we see on a slide. And we need to give a conclusion as to whatever is asked. So, for example, when we're talking about the functional currency, we are going to say that, let's say, the percentage of intragroup sales is only 10%, which means that the subsidiary is not just an extension of a parent. So first it was copy-paste about the 10%, then a portion of the slide, so extension or not extension of a parent, autonomy, and then a conclusion. So the parent's functional currency is not necessarily the functional currency of the subsidiary. The most important factor that impacts whether you are going to pass or fail. Look, when you are going to a gym, you need someone who's going to correct your position. So you can watch your, let's say, yoga or whatever as much as you want, and you will think that your arms are in parallel, but they won't be. The same idea is in here. So it's important that you submit your assignments for review. So it doesn't really matter who you study with. Make sure that you use that opportunity. because you need the feedback of what you are doing wrong and why. I haven't copy pasted the example of a feedback, but you will see that most likely the amount of red text that I'm going to write for you in the first assignment is going to exceed whatever you have typed with your black ink, because it's my job to explain to you what you are doing right, and as such what technique should be continued, and how to change your answer so that your ideas would start scoring marks. I don't care about the model answer. I care about you getting the points, the marks. As for how to self-mark your questions, if you don't have any tutor, it's important, it's vital for you to read the examiner's report. If you have a tutor, then it's going to be incorporated in the way the tutor talks. If they, well, are professional tutors that spend their time and so on, and they care about you and not just reread the book from the second screen. You need to ensure that you explain and not just state in order to get a mark. So remember, 1 mark is given per relevant point, which is well explained. So you need to explain why. And there is no such thing as 0.5 mark in SBR. Sorry. So it's just 1 or 0. Can there be 2 marks? Yes, if there are 2 different ideas. But it's 1 mark per 1 justified point. It doesn't really matter whether it's 1 line or 10 lines. We aim at scoring a mark each and every 2 lines. Why would it be important? Because, with me, you are going to study how to deal with the uncertainty. And basically what we are doing, we learn mark efficiency. So it means that it doesn't really matter how much you know, how much you don't know. You know that that is how much time you need. So that's how much time you have, and you know that you earn a mark every 2 minutes. So you just put your effort where you can score marks. And 1 mark is going to be given for the theory, but only if it is related to the question asked. So for example, if the question is about hedging, we will be given a mark about, if we talk about hedge effectiveness, only if the question has something related to hedge effectiveness. If it's just the discussion of the normal hedge accounting, no mark for just going that deep. Yes, and finally, what do we do if we have to study with a full-time job? First of all, you need to accept the reality. The reality is that unfortunately you will have to sacrifice. You will have to spend time. There are more than 40 papers. You have to cover them. You can't just create the knowledge. It took time, people, to invent IFRS standards. And it's important for you to start your journey today. So don't wait till you know the exam results. Look, if you're planning to do self-study, if you start studying today, then by the day when you learn your result, you will be, well, not a month and a half, but a month ahead, and you can continue. If you fail and you decide to resit and not take SBR, then it's also okay, because when you start studying for June, you will still have this advantage because you have practice, you have watched something, and so on. So with me, with my course, you have free deferral opportunity. So you just can buy the course, you can start watching videos, you can send me the assignments if you want to, and so on. And if that happens and you learn that you failed the exam and you need to defer, go ahead, no problem. So I will just change the deadline of the course. I will tell you, okay, no problem. So you will submit your other assignments later, and you will get the access to the course well as long as you need. Things happen and you are in doubt, and I respect that. But start your journey today. Don't gamble. I mean, it's really hard to get ready for this very exam within a month and a half, because there are more than 40 standards. You have seen how voluminous the exam is. Schedule to study at least 3 times a week so that you don't lose whatever you have learned. And remember, we have to learn new, and then 5 to 7 days we have to revise whatever we have learned. You can do that by attempting long questions, or you can do that by going through the mind maps or through the printouts with the visualization and just revising it. Make a picture of a day. So you might think that you don't have any time, that you are overwhelmed. Well, start recording whatever you are doing, and you will find that happens to everyone. So you will find out that, let's say you spend too much time grocery shopping. Okay, what can be done differently? Can you ask your relatives to help you, like whoever you live with? Maybe you can order online delivery. Maybe you can rearrange something that you buy in a different pattern, or go to grocery shopping when it's not the peak time, when you have to stand in long lines. Can happen. It may be that, let's say, you have to prioritize. So, for example, it could be that you have a friend and you meet with your friend every week for a cup of coffee, and that takes you 3 hours. And friends are great and so on. But also, you have to qualify, because every session that you fail, every session that you postpone, steals your ability to progress career-wise and many ways. So, okay, you can do something differently. So, for example, meet every other week, or meet closer to your house, or try like calls or online or whatever. So you can find a day. You can find the time in the day. Trust me, even with the busiest schedule. Let's say you're waiting for the elevator when you go to the office center, to the office building. Just do a few quizzes. You have the access from your phone, right? So plan micro studies. Also, like, how it happens that let's say you have a doctor's appointment and you have to wait there, and you haven't taken anything with you, and you just sit there for 10 minutes just scrolling through your social media, whereas you could have listened to a podcast, attempted a quiz, attempted a short question, go through the previous notes. So plan your micro studies a day before. Talk about what you've learned. So use the opportunity to revise the content. So if, let's say, you come from work and your husband asks you how your day went, you tell them, oh, you know what, funny thing. So did you know when the companies use initial coin offering? I do remember that you like modern companies, artificial intelligence and stuff. Well, did you know that they may issue not conventional shares, but do it like that? And that can actually be a liability for the company, or it can be equity. Let me explain to you what is the difference. Use this opportunity and choose your battles. So look, not every hard question needs to be practiced, and I see that in each and every exam. So people would start to advise on social media, okay, well, try this question. This is like the worst. I've spent 2 hours trying to decipher what it is. Now, you need to understand that there is a meat of our, this the skeleton, the structure of our exam that we need to practice. We need to practice something that is commonly tested. And on top of that, we need to practice the skill of dealing with the unknown. But we don't need to engage in questions that are very niche. There are some questions that I would never give my clients because they don't provide much of educational value, but they take too much time. It doesn't mean that we can avoid all hard topics. No, you may not like hedging, but you have to study it. You may not like IS-32, so like the distinction between liabilities and equity, but this gets tested with like 90% probability, so you have to study it. But when we're talking about some nuances, well, like let's say hedging ratio, most likely you can skip it and don't pay attention to it. So that is how it happens. And how can I help you pass? So first of all, even if you use self-study, if you use different learning provider, if you just, let's say, have some other sources, or you use my course, you have my LinkedIn, and there are articles, there are quizzes that help you to be up to date, that can be used as this micro study. So let's say if you are sitting there and waiting for your dentist appointment, just go through my profile and go browse through quizzes, and that would be great. So just if you, oh, it's just 4,000 followers, so I have almost 6,000 now. Yes, I need to make another screenshot of that. Yes, so this is my page. And yes, this is how quizzes look like. So you will see that people don't get it right. And you will see that later I'm going to explain using the video format. And listen to SBR Made Easy podcast. Oh, where was it? Yep. Yes. Use my SBR course, which is absolutely fantastic. So you can see that there are different packages. I would personally recommend you to go with the enhanced tuition. So in there, as I told you, there is going to be the full theory. There is going to be examples for each and every standard and so on. If you have the money and the opportunity, it would be great to go into Platinum course because it will also get the revision. So it's going to be a bunch of past papers that I will challenge for you. So I will show you how the question was supposed to be tackled, how to arrive at the answer at the marks using the scenario, so that to build your skill and also to revise the standards that you have covered. So all of the courses have been created by me. But there is no outsourced labor, which I'm very proud of. So there was no, because what happens quite often with major learning providers is that they outsource non-client facing staff to, let's say, cheaper labor. So yesterday's students, and what a person gets, what the client gets as a result, they get notes that are not exam focused. So a nice example would be if you have a question that has low notes that are not nominated in $100, it's not exam focused because in ACCA it's always $100. So I don't like it. So the notes have been created by me. The notes that you have in PDF or in a text file, the presentation has been created, the videos have been created, the quizzes have been created by me, and your answers are going to be reviewed and commented by me. And also you will have Zoom call where we are going to discuss your strengths and weaknesses and what to do with that. It's going to be a half an hour session, and that is going to help you boost your confidence, and also it will make your preparation tailored to you and not just to the average person. So that is how it works. Now, do you have any questions? I am all ears. You can ask them in the chat, or you can just get there and ask it by voice. Oh, and yes, if you are going to join me before Monday, then you can use this code. I'm going to send it to the chat. I'm going to send it in your email and buy it at discount. Now, do you have any questions? Okay. I still accept the questions in your mail, in your LinkedIn, and so on. Oh, yes, I can see that you have raised your hand. Hold on a second. I'm going to pause the recording so that, yes, up. Okay. Here. Yeah, so once again, thank you all for joining. Your questions are still welcomed. And have a great evening. Yes, and thank you for your time. And see you in my course, see you in my WhatsApp, and later as part of my fantastic group of those people who have started with me. And now I feel a special bond, special connection, and we can discuss some work-related matters as well. Bye. Bye-bye.